few people joining us in the waiting room. So we will maybe wait just a minute or so. It seems like there's quite a few people trying to get in at the moment. Okay, I think we have everyone that was currently in the waiting room, and we'll keep leaving people in as they join us. I'd like to welcome you today to our webinar, BEAD, What's Changed, What's Next, and What Can Communities Do? I'm Gail Hike. I'm the Community Development Broadband Outreach Specialist with UW Extension. And today, we are very excited, Extension, to be hosting this webinar with the Wisconsin Broadband Office from the PSC. And our presenters today will be myself, along with Brittany Beyer, who's a Community Economic Development Specialist with UW Extension, and Mark Leonard, PSC Broadband Planning and Policy Coordinator. We're excited. We know there are a lot of questions on what's happening, and we would like to spend some of the next hour talking about the things that are current with the BEAD program. We will welcome your questions. If you have questions while we're doing the presentation, please drop those in the chat. We may be answering some of those as we read them right away, but we do have a section at the end where we'll open it up for questions, go through those questions we haven't attended to in the chat, and any other questions you may have. And with that, I will turn it over to Mark, who's going to give us an update from the broadband office. Mark?
Thanks, Gail. Thank you. A little background reminder on BEAD. BEAD stands for the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. It comes from the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure law that allocated $42.5 billion to deploy broadband infrastructure with the goal of affordable and reliable internet for all. Wisconsin was allocated just under $1.1 billion out of that $42.5 billion. NTIA, the National Telecommunication Information Administration, oversees the program and handles final approvals. The Public Service Commission handles the allocation of funding and selecting recipients, and subgrantee recipients are the entities that will construct, own, operate the broadband infrastructure, and comply with reporting. Next slide, please. Thank you. There was a tremendous amount of preparation work for BEAD over the past three to 4 years. That includes Badger the FCC campaign, and an Internet for All Wisconsin listening tour, BEAD local planning grants for county and tribal governments and regional economic development organizations, broadband planning toolkits for local and tribal governments, the 5-year action plan, and initial proposal volume 1 and volume 2 that involved public comments and commission approval. Next slide, please. This past summer at the Wisconsin Broadband Office, on June 6th, NTIA released the BEAD restructuring policy notice. The policy notice made programmatic and implementation changes to BEAD. The policy notice required the commission to rescind previous BEAD preliminary awards to run the benefit of the bargain grant run, or as we call it, BEAD BOB. Where originally fiber was prioritized in subgranting, the policy notice changed that to take a technology neutral approach in which fiber, fixed wireless, low Earth orbital, or known as LEO, satellite services were now on the same playing level. And now also with the BOB round, lowest cost per project location wins. After the BOB round, the broadband office had to negotiate with applicants for 34,000 locations to fill gaps. At the end of August, the commission released the draft final proposal for a 7-day public comment period. The commission received 113 public comments. So thanks to many of you, I see a lot of you on this call recognize from reading the comments. Thank you for your comments. They were all reviewed and the commission really appreciates them. Then the draft final proposal went to the commission open meeting on September 3rd and was submitted to NTIA by the September 4th deadline. Next slide, please. All right. Since submission of the draft final proposal, the broadband office has been incurring with NTIA, making revisions to meet evolving NTIA guidance. Here is the most updated preliminary awards as of October 14th. You can see here in the table, 174,337 locations for just over $690 million was awarded. And I just want to emphasize that these are preliminary awards. They're not set in stone yet and may change. So again, the table breakdown here, award by broadband service location or BSL, and percentage of BSLs awarded. As you can see, fiber is preliminary awarded to 132,620 locations, or just over 76%. Fixed wireless for 17,204 locations, or just under 10%. And LEO satellite for 24,321 locations, or 14% of those BEAD eligible locations. And a mix of technologies of fiber and fixed wireless for 192 BSLs, or 0.1% of those locations. So covering 100% of BEAD eligible locations in the state. Next slide, please. All right, this table is more of a breakdown from after curing and negotiations with NTIA. It's the most recent preliminary awards by entity for community anchor institutions, CEIs for short, and also breakdown of BSL counts, match funds committed by entity, and BEAD award funds to each entity. You'll see there are 20 entities shown here that received a preliminary award out of the 42 entities that had an approved letter of intent. And you'll see in the bottom right of the table that the award is between $195 million and $196 million. But again, these numbers are preliminary, and I believe that these slides will be shared by extension after the webinar. Next slide, please. Here's a screenshot of the BEAD preliminary award map along with the link. And I'm sure that Gail or Brittany will link that here in the chat soon. You can find also the link on the PSC BEAD grant webpage. The map depicts the BEAD preliminary awards by location, technology, and awardee. The map also includes removal codes for locations originally eligible but not needing BEAD funding. I just want to make a note when navigating the map, when searching for location data, make sure to zoom into the location point on the map, and you have the correct toggles on the side of the map, so you can get the most accurate data. A lot of questions I get fielded is it's not showing up. I can't find the data. Just got to really zoom into that dot. And I know a lot of you on here have dealt with that, as I see Michael shaking his head. Next slide, please. Here's a timeline of what it looks like right now. The commission submitted draft final proposal by that September 4th deadline, with NTIA goal to complete reviews and approvals by December 4th. I'm sure a lot of you have seen earlier today, 18 states got their finals approvals. Wisconsin was not one of them, but we are hopeful that, again, that NTI will get that approval by that December 4th deadline. Again, looking promising, as 18 of those were approved this morning. Between December 2025 and February 2026, the Broadband Office will work on grant management system preparations, grant agreement reviews, and get those signed off by the awardees. And they go into onboarding with the awardees. Then the BEAD awardees will work on NEPA compliance during the first half of the new year. And then that performance period in which the BEAD awardees will have 4 years. So looking at around 2030 right now to complete their BEAD projects. Awardees must continue to operate the network and provide service for the BEAD locations for at least 10 years after the performance period. And then also NTIA requires LEO services extend additional 10-year performance period. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Brittany to keep us moving. Brittany?
Thanks, Mark. So many of you were very active with early preparations for the bead rounds. Thank you so much for all of that work. Many of you know that things have changed since then. And here's a little bit of information about what has changed and how that's really impacted decision making. The Broadband Office was able to send out preliminary decisions on a round one for their early BEAD awards. Those were rescinded, and the state was required to then conduct the benefit of the bargain round, the BOB round, as you heard from Mark. Earlier in the BEAD program, each state was allowed to define what a community anchor institution was based off of the NTIA's decisions. They decided to rescind that and have it be refined back to the NTIA's decision of the community anchor institution. Not much changed for the state of Wisconsin, but some of you would recognize that the patterning for the rounds, the community anchor institutions were a later round in the first model. They were included with everything in the benefit of the bargain round, the BOB round. We see a lot of community leaders on this call. As you remember, engagement and endorsement were first part of the application rounds and the preparation that was removed through the NTIA's updated notice. So those pieces of information were not included in the BEAD BOB round. So previously approved non-deployment funds, which include workforce development, but it also includes any of the funds that will not be sent out through the applications that were awarded. The clarity on what will happen with those funds was rescinded, and right now the Broadband Office is waiting for federal guidance to explain how to use those in the future. You might have some questions. We don't necessarily have that information yet. The prior two BEAD rounds, so you might remember the round one was already into preliminary awards. Round two was open and was about to close when NTIA guidance came out. Those two rounds would have deployed fiber to 99.3% of the eligible locations. That's roughly 185,000 locations. It would have been an average cost of $5,004 per location. That again was rescinded and the BEAD BOB round was activated. As Mark said, their information is updated as of October 14th. What we understand right now, you saw this slide earlier, the preliminary awards should have about 76% of the locations receiving fiber, just under 10% receiving wireless, 14% LEO, and 0.1% is going to be mixed technologies. And I'm going to hand it over to Gail.
Great. Thanks, Brittany. So what's next for the BEAD program? As Mark mentioned before, NTIA is working through a curing and approval of final proposals. Wisconsin has submitted theirs back in September. We anticipate that ours, if they follow their 90 days, would come the beginning of December. We're looking at that December 3rd date. I always say we're anticipating it'll happen, but I'm not holding my breath. But as today, Mark mentioned, they approved 18 of them. We weren't one, but that gives me great hope, folks, that we're moving forward. So that's where we are in the process. It's in NTIA's ballpark right now. They're up to bat, so we'll take it from there. And the PSC know that they're waiting just as anxiously as you are to get those out the door. For projects on tribal land, a formal resolution from the tribal governing body is going to be required within 6 months. So we have those preliminary awards, but projects without tribal consent will not be allowed to continue. I think that's a real important point. People are always asking, so is that consent still there? Yes, that consent is still there. It's important for tribes to be watching, moving those projects through if they want them to continue. I know Mark has been kind of beating the bushes to try to make contacts with all of our tribes to make sure that process is underway and folks will be able to move those forward. So important thing to remember is the consent will not be allowed, the project won't be allowed to continue without the tribal governing body's consent. National Historic and Environmental Review process and determination is still there. I know they've spent a lot of work to streamline processes as much as possible. Those all projects will need to take a look at that historic and environmental review and undergo that process. PSC has been trying to update. I know Mark had mentioned they will be working to hold a webinar with those folks who have preliminary awards, hopefully the beginning of December, to walk through some of that, and some of those things will be covered in there as well. We've talked a lot over the last 2 years about permitting. I know the Wisconsin Broadband office has been working hard at working with our other organizations that deal with permitting. I saw Kathy is online with DOT, so we have a lot of folks that have been working to try to streamline that process. Local permitting, we really encourage, we see a lot of you online from local county and communities to take a look at permitting and figure out how you can help move that process along. I know I was reading some of the endorsements that were in place before the endorsement process stopped, and a number of you mentioned working to move those permits through the process quickly, and in some instances waiving some of those fees. So that's still something we encourage counties to work with the providers to move those projects along. One of the things we get is, when am I going to get the broadband, right? When's it coming my way? And I think construction will hopefully construction will begin the next construction season and the beginning of the next year. But construction will be complete 4 years from a signed grant agreement. So we have to get those grant agreements signed, and then providers will have up to 4 years to get that. I know that sometimes that makes people in the community anxious, but local committees, elected officials, if you can help kind of give that message, they're working as fast as they can, but they do have those 4 years to execute that contract. Hey, Brittany.
So what can you do at this point? We're hopefully very close to hearing the final decisions from the NTIA. But if you have not already, familiarizing yourself with the PSC's preliminary BEAD awards map is very important. That link was shared in the chats, and it's right there on the slide deck. And yes, we'll be sending out the slide deck and the recording to everyone who signed up. Again, the detail is there for you to drill down on and do some comparison. Make sure you're toggling on and off some of those different layers to get a good picture. The second thing that we recommend is a little more complex. Inside of IRF, the PSC put the award audit data. That is a complete list of all of the awardees and those who applied in the BEAD BOB round. So if you're not familiar with IRF, you can sign up on IRF, and I'll put that in the chat along with it in the slides. The docket number is 5BD 2025. The reference number is right down here, 5638887. It is a spreadsheet that will download, and you can take a look at that information. It is complex. If you need assistance in reviewing that, the best way of doing that is to email the PSE BEAD grants email address, which is on the screen as well, and they will be able to help you. But that is a way to verify the applications that were in your areas of concern to understand why the preliminary awardees were in fact the ones who were awarded those projects. Gail, I'm handing it back to you.
Great. So we're going to continue with some of the things that communities can do. We know we've spent a lot of time, Mark talked about planning grants that were given to counties, regions, and tribes to do local planning. We really encourage all of you to review your broadband plans. Take a look at what it was, what your goals were, where those areas of concern were. Review the BEAD preliminary awards. Brittany just gave you some links to take a look at those preliminary awards and the maps. So you can take a look at what's out there, the type of technology you'll be getting, and who is received the preliminary award. Remember, preliminary is there in yellow. Nothing is a done deal yet, but that's a great place to start. And then look at, even though the endorsements are no longer considered or in place, many communities, I think we had 52 counties that made endorsements. Take a look at what your endorsements said, especially if there was a financial commitment. We really encourage you, if there was a financial commitment, to consult with Corp Counsel to figure out what that commitment was, and was it based solely on getting the BEAD grant, or do you have projects that you've committed funds to locally, and how are those going to move forward, if they're going to move forward? Speak with your provider if you were partnering on BEAD. If you were partnering on BEAD, remember, no one's in this alone. If we're going to make BEAD work, we need to partner, and it's going to take communities and ISPs all working together to make sure that these projects are going to be successful. So talk to your provider if you were partnering on BEAD. Speak with preliminary awardees if you have no prior relationship. That's really important that you introduce yourself, open that conversation, and let them know, this is who they would be working with as far as permitting and other types of things. How can you make this project successful together, I think, is what we're really encouraging. engage with your broadband committee to keep on top of BEAD changes. A lot of folks were considering when BEAD was the preliminary awards were made, their jobs were done, and maybe committees haven't been meeting, waiting to know what's going to happen next. We really encourage you to pull those committees together to keep on top of what BEAD changes have been made, what will that look like, and look at maybe some long-term planning to address some of your local needs. I think people were thinking BEAD was going to solve everything, and BEAD has changed somewhat. And so maybe what's in the plan isn't what you thought you were going to have to address your local needs. So take a look at that and figure out, how do you continue your work? Continue to follow the Wisconsin Broadband Office and Extension's broadband newsletters to keep on top of non-deployment decisions as well. Remember when we built BEAD, there was money after we finished deployment and infrastructure. Those dollars that were left were going to be spent on some of the things, other items like workforce and skills training and those things. Keep on top of that because we're still waiting on NTIA. Hasn't released rules yet on what that'll look like and if those funds are coming to the state or not. And we encourage you to continue to speak with your elected officials about your community's broadband access, adoption, and affordability needs. We know that it's a three-legged stool, and all those components are going to be important if we're going to be successful. Brittany?
And as always, do know that the Extension Broadband team is here for you, just like the Wisconsin Broadband Office is here for you. But specifically what our statewide broadband specialists can do for you. I know a lot of you have worked with us one-on-one. Some of us have attended some of your broadband committee meetings or just had a conversation with you as you're trying to figure out how to address your needs. We are absolutely available for those conversations to continue. Just like this webinar and the past webinars, we will always be doing webinars throughout the year. Just know that we have a list of webinars that we're planning, so keep an eye on that. One of the great ways of keeping up to date with that is, of course, our newsletter. A lot of times the Broadband Office also links our webinars and vice versa. The regional broadband workshops that we've had in the past are still going to happen. Tentatively, right now, we're planning them for spring of 2026. So information about those will be forthcoming. As many of you know, we have our own broadband toolkit on our website. We are continually refining that and adding new pieces to that toolkit. So keep an eye on that as well as we continue to advance through the BEAD process. And with that, we can open it up for questions. There are 4 members of our broadband team here at Extension. All of our email addresses are there for you, along with Mark's and the PSC. But happy to, you can raise your hand. I don't see any questions in the chat at this point, but we can certainly take your questions. Dale, I see your hand raised.
Yes. So I wasn't able to read many of the awards as they flash across the screen, but I did notice that there was quite a discrepancy between the amount of match money versus grant money for different projects that were awarded. Was the were match funds part of the criteria for grant award in this last round of grant
Yeah.
approval?
Yes, Dale, 25% match was required. There were some waivers that were submitted, but NTI did not approve any of those match waivers.
So if you provided more match, were you given higher priority?
No, because again, with the policy changes and the benefit of the bargain round, Bob, it was lowest cost by the provider wins, and the match is coming from the provider. But I know a lot of counties, pledge match towards provider, but
Right.
that did not build into whether the award was won or not. It was based on lowest cost.
Mhm. So one had to provide at least 25% match, is that right?
Correct.
It's the minimum. But a lot of the awards were for funded more than 75% of the project. Am I saying that right?
I think you're referring to maybe some of the Leo ones that won the awards because they bid the least amount, because again, that was the cheapest and lowest cost.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, that's what you're looking at there. And
Yeah.
again, I know for you down in Southwest there, I know you did a lot of good work there trying to pledge match and work with the providers there. So thank you for your work on that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
A little late to the game, but here's the slide. And Dale will send it out so it will be easier for you to see probably.
I mean, just at random, I looked at East Central Energy, 7,100,000 match on a $7,900,000 project. No, the award was that. So it's almost 50-50. Right? Is that how I'm reading that? Yeah, the match was close to the BEAD award.
Should be there around that, 25%.
Well, it's more than 25, but that's okay. It's 50%. Yeah. Okay.
We have a
It
question.
was just minimum of 25%. Some could have given more.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Wendy's asked a question. What was the cost per location difference between the first round and the BEAD Bob round?
Oh, great question. Off the top of my head, I know again the Bob round, $5,004. Seven, 8,000 around there during the first round. Maybe Rory probably knows. He's on. Probably chime in. He'll probably put the number in
Yeah.
chat.
So the final Bob, kind of the final preliminary awards that we came up with was about an average of $4,000 a location. So it came down a little bit, but that's attributable because the policy changes prioritizing lowest cost, but then also kind of the technology neutrality. The mix of technologies is significantly different than the original round.
Rory, do you want to speak a little bit about the mix change from the two rounds?
Sure. Oh, is my camera not working? Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Hi. So the original round prioritized fiber as kind of like a area. With the policy changes, the shift was identifying any deployment that could meet some kind of statutory minimum required speeds of 100 megabits down and 20 megabits up. So what that did in reality, we didn't kind of complete the original allocation process, so we don't have a precise view, but we had allocated probably more than 95% of locations some type of award, and of those, almost all were fiber. Whereas in kind of the final result here, we have about 70% fiber, 12 or 13% fixed wireless, 12 or 13% low Earth orbit, and then just a little smidge of kind of mixed technology at the end. So kind of the policy change result was kind of a broader range of technologies depending on kind of where the bids came in and kind of what the lowest cost was.
Thanks, Rory.
Yeah.
Other questions? Crystal, let's see. Crystal has one regarding the required tribal consent. Have the ones in the map identified as no tribal consent denied consent, or is this a new requirement and they just need to be aware of it? Is there anything we can do to help our Northwest 10 counties?
Great question, Crystal. There was some back and forth carrying with NTIA on this, as there was no tribal consent before, but now NTIA would like us to have some form of documentation from the tribe, either selecting an ISP for the broadband work with, or a document saying we are not giving tribal consent to a provider for BEAD. And in some cases, some tribes may be working on a tribal broadband connectivity program through NTIA to get that grant. So that may be a reason why they wouldn't give tribal consent. And yeah, you're always more than welcome to reach out to the tribes in your county if you need contacts. I have those. I know up there in Crystal's area, there's been turnover over there with the broadband folks. So I have an updated contact if you don't, Crystal.
Well, and I think, Mark, the question on the map, when you click on it, it says no tribal consent.
Yep.
That doesn't mean they've denied it. It just doesn't mean it's happened yet, right?
Correct. And again, the process working on, and so that map will be updated once that is all taken care of.
Thanks. Steph has a question. Is there information about what each service will cost the consumer?
There is low-cost service option. We'll be providing that information. You can see on the memo or on Earth right now of what the provider submitted. But we are digging in and asking again for those applicants or awardees to send us updated information if there's any changes to those. Great question.
Any more questions? Good questions so far. Think we can hang tight for a while, but maybe we'll ask if Mark, if there's anything else you'd like to share.
I would just encourage those counties to continue, if they have a broadband committee or commission group, keep meeting, keep sharing information. Again, feel free to send me an invite. I wouldn't mind sitting in, listening to what you guys discuss, because again, a lot of information I take from you guys there is learning, and I take that back to the office, and we take that into consideration on how we go about things. So appreciate the invites that I already get. And as Gail mentioned already, prepare, for permitting. There's legislation at the federal level they're working on, try to streamline permitting. But again, it starts at the local level with you guys. So any help you can provide, there's some broadband forward contacts that I have, or certified broadband forward. You can do that on the PSC website. I can link that here in chat, and assist on that front. So
Brittany, anything else that you can think of we need to share?
Not off the top of my head, just like Mark, our offer to be of assistance is there as well. I think I guess we could give a tiny bit of a preview for what we're thinking about for the regional broadband workshop, which is taking a view of what it looks like once we have broadband expansion, what will occur for specific industries across the state. We are anticipating the first focus will be on healthcare and the impacts of accessibility of internet access on that industry. So again, that we're thinking that it's going to be in late spring of 2026.
Well, if we have nothing else, there are no other questions. We encourage you to reach out to the Wisconsin Broadband Office or UW Extension, and we are happy that you joined us today. We are all open to helping you through this journey together. So please reach out if we can be of assistance to you. And we will be sharing the slides, and we do have those slides that will be available, as well as we have a recording that we made today.
And I guess I would say the recording will take a little bit more time because we
Right.
put it up on our YouTube channel and make sure that the captioning is correct. So it might be in 2 installments of an email.
Okay, with that, thank you everyone for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we hope you see a little sun.